I speak to you in the name of God, Creator, Redeemer, Sanctifier. Amen. It's just like our lives. In fact, it is our lives. The story that unfolds this week is a bundle of contradictions. We begin Holy Week on a note of triumph and joy. What could have been more triumphant and more joyous than the procession we had this morning, right? But we will end this week in sorrow and defeat. Today, Jesus rides into town on a colt, surrounded by fans shouting his praises. But when this week ends, he will stumble out of town, bearing the full weight of a cross, scorned by a multitude who cry for his blood. And the truth is, everything that Jesus experiences this week, in one way or another, happens to us or is happening in our world right now. From the best to the worst. Adulation, joy, but also suffering, rejection, and betrayal. And in the end, redemption through sacrificial love. It's all here. This drama is our lives. It is as real as it gets, and it begins today. But like those who gathered to see Jesus enter Jerusalem, some of us are not going to walk the whole journey. In the end, just a few of his disciples will be with him every step of the way. Maybe it's because our lives are busy, or we have other commitments that seem too pressing to take the time to be here. And I don't mean that as a criticism at all. Sure, today in your bulletin, it doesn't say homily or sermon, it says exhortation. So you probably expect to be goaded or guilted or chided into showing up for church. No, no, Kent, that is not what this is about. Today is not about showing up for church as much as it is about being drawn into the drama of our salvation by being present. And being present, whether that is here in the church this week, or online, or in communion with others as you walk through this week, is so much a part of that. We live this story of Holy Week so that that story may live in us and may shine in the world. In other words, you need some way to experience it all. Because this triumphant entry we celebrate today can't be separated from its tragic exit on Good Friday or from its glorious redemption on Easter Day. We celebrate this week the way we do, going from the waving of the palms to standing at the foot of the cross, because like the crowd that rode on Jesus' coattails, part of us needs to be stripped of our expectations of how God saves us and this world through humility and sacrifice. This drama we participate in throughout Holy Week is the same story that the people of God have lived since the first "in the beginning" was written. And it's the same story that the people of God will live until the final Amen of our world and of our lives is penned. It's the story of how God shatters our expectations in the best sense, and instead embraces our deepest longings. The depth of God's love for us will live out in us this week as it lived out in Jesus the last week of his life. What we will discover is that love is not meant to meet our expectations. It is meant to embrace the deepest desires of our hearts, often the things we don't even know that we want or need. That's the story of every person who entered Jerusalem that day, waving palm branches in ecstatic expectation. They frolicked and followed Jesus, filled with what they thought their salvation would look like. But they didn't get what they expected. Instead, they were given what they truly longed for: a promise and a hope. A promise and a hope that the one who lived and died for them would rise again, that everything would be undone, that the love of God lived out in Jesus Christ, offered in sacrifice, and raised beyond hope, would change everything forever. We need to hear that, especially now. No exaggeration here. More than any Holy Week I can remember for my whole life, this one seems the most poignant and the most real, given what's going on in the world and in our lives. We are living in deep uncertainty. And all those stories that we will hear this week in Holy Week mirror or echo exactly what's going on in the world. Praise turns to scorn. Those who we thought had our backs turn away. And so many lies are being told that every day we wonder, what is truth? I feel like we are really living on a promise and a hope, especially this Holy Week. This week, my prayer for us all is that that note of triumph with which we began this day may echo through Christ's suffering and death, through everything that's going on in the world and in our lives, only to resound more loudly and clearly in Jesus' resurrection. But to hear those echoes, however faint they may seem, we need to be present. present to one another, present to the world. Not just to hear the story, but have that story live in us. And here's our deepest hope. In the end, everything that's going on in the world and in our lives is in God's hand, and God will redeem it. No matter what we do or don't do, despite what's done or left undone, whether we're present or not, Easter will happen anyway. All that alienates us from God and one another dies with Jesus on the cross and is raised to new life in us. So I invite you to have a blessed Holy Week. Find a way, whether it's here or elsewhere, to live the story of our salvation. Become it, and let the story become you. Because as you will discover anew, every time you experience it, it changes everything. Amen.